As many people know, as it is known around the world, Fritz and I are the producers of the best Metchosin rhubarb. And in producing rhubarb, we often have fun with our deer. They are Columbia black-tail deer, and there are about somewhere around 5 to a dozen on the property. But the most faithful ones are this young doe and probably her mother, an older doe. And they're quite tame. They come to us. We don't usually go to them. And they tolerate us even if we're using heavy machinery like little tractors and chainsaws and so on. Here they are both, the older doe in the background and the young one in the foreground. And the young one in the foreground is very curious about Fritzy, our faithful griffin. So she comes closer and closer and inspects Fritzy and starts to sort of dance and prance around in front of him. Now, she's probably only 30 meters away from him. And she turns closer and closer, and then her trust wanes, and she turns and starts to dart off, which triggers a pursuit of Fritzy. And here's the fence of our garden with a little chipping sparrow singing faithfully all day long. And the rhubarb is outside the fence, because everybody knows that rhubarb is poisonous and nobody eats rhubarb leaves. Only our deer don't know this, and here's the younger doe, and she gorges herself on rhubarb leaves. At that time she had a little fawn. These pictures are taken in 2009, about July. And she was having this little fawn, and we clearly saw her teats on one or the other of the pictures. And gorging herself with rhubarb leaves didn't do any harm to her or her fawn. We saw them many times year-round. Here's this year's pictures. The older doe standing above a little fawn which is almost hidden in the meadow in front of her. When I discovered it in these pictures, I went up, and in order to get pictures from more close up, Fritz went with me, but he never saw or never smelled and never identified the little fawn. Here is the doe, and she's migrating off to the neighbor's property to the north of us and is disappearing behind the trees. And a few moments later she reappears and then goes straight to her little fawn, and she stubs her nose into it, but doesn't really stop, but continues on, and then stops again and waits and looks at me and looks back. Now she continues on in the direction that she originally wanted to go. By the way, her daughter, the younger doe, was also there, and she also had a fawn, but I didn't include the pictures which I took of those two. Anyway, here the doe looks back and then tries to go back to her fawn, entices it. Here you can see the fawn very faintly, about 5 meters in front of the doe. Now it starts moving towards the doe, but it goes back and ducks down in the meadow. And the doe continues on. And then, in a few moments, you'll see that the fawn did indeed follow her. There it is. Very faintly visible, like a shadow in the grass. So these are the little perks which we have when we are harvesting rhubarb.